Welcome Eastonians and also the non-Eastonians who are here to witness this fascinating debate between Peter Mellon and Sal Panto and to learn more about local government. Lafayette College, which is a proud resident of Easton, is delighted to welcome all of you to campus. I'm John Kincaid, the professor and also director of the Robert D. and Helen S. Minor Center for the Study of State and Local Government. I would like to thank Nicole Beckett, who's sitting in the front here, Professor Kathleen Fabian over here, and Chelsea Marie sitting down here at the front table from the Landis Center for Community Engagement for their really invaluable work in putting this debate together. I'd also like to thank the many students who are here, Dimitri and Dylan sitting up front helping to keep the timekeeping, and so we appreciate all of their involvement. We also thank Channel 69 News for live streaming this debate, so be on your best behavior, and also the other media who are here to cover the debate. So tonight's event will go to about 8:30 this evening. All the questions asked to the candidate will be responses we received from the public on our poster's QR code and for questions submitted by you now. And so if you don't like some of the questions, don't shoot me, I'm just the messenger, but really asking your questions. So there are 3x5 cards and pencils circulating for you to write down questions. If you need a card, please wave your hand. If you wish to submit a question, hold up your card and return the pencil so we can recycle the pencils. The questions are anonymous. You don't have to put your name on the question. Please don't submit questions that target or attack one candidate, and we will do our best to ask as many questions as possible, but please understand there may not be time to ask everyone's question. Each candidate will have 3 minutes for an opening statement, 2 minutes to answer a question, and 4 minutes to make a closing statement. Just before the closing statements, each candidate will directly ask one question of his opponent. The order of speaking was determined by a coin toss, and we sincerely request that the candidates abide by the time limits. The timekeepers are right here on the table. Yellow sign is 15 seconds left. Red sign is stop. And finally, we ask you, the audience, to hold your applause until the very end of the debate. Please do not clap, shout, stomp your feet, jump up and down, or throw peanuts until the end of the debate altogether. So we would greatly appreciate that. The coin toss determined that Mr. Mellon would go first, and so we asked each candidate to submit a biographical statement. So let me read Mr. Mellon's statement before he makes his opening statement, and I'll do the same for Mr. Panto before his opening statement. Peter Mellon is a Democratic candidate for mayor of Easton, Pennsylvania. He serves his community as a council person since being elected in 2015 and has brought a wealth of ideas and knowledge to the city during his tenure. In his time on city council, Peter has assisted in resolving financial problems with analyzing data, along with initiating and bringing to completion several key pieces of legislation, such as strengthening ethics. Peter's selected profession is a local government consultant who founded a firm specialized in performing data analysis, providing solutions for complex issues. His experience in understanding how governments function and the reliance on quality data helps make him more effective decisions for Easton. So Peter obtained a master's degree in public administration from Ohio University in 2020. Learning the modern methods of government and administration allows him to think pragmatically, offer creative ideas, and resolve many challenges municipalities face daily, such as resolving and making sense of contradictory data. So he serves the community in various roles, working as a board member of the Easton Area Community Center and a government representative of the Lehigh Valley Hospital Paramedic Institute. Peter remains focused on public safety with a strong purpose to continue advocating for the residents. Peter's an active proponent for positive change, wanting to transform the way our city successfully connects with residents, with a focus on being accessible. Peter has a passionate interest in not only improving our services, but also increasing them without a negative effect on the budget. Peter resides on College Hill with his wife, Kristen, and his children, Patrick, age 16, and Sophie, aged 13. Mr. Mellon, you have the floor for 3 minutes.
Thank you, Dr. Kincaid. Thank you to everyone who is in the audience this evening. Just to elaborate a little more on what Dr. Kincaid said, I am an agent for change. I think people tend to be comfortable in who they select as their leaders, and most of us are just afraid of change. And my platform so far has been that I do want to change how things are in the city of Easton. I mean, I think I will give my opponent the world of credit for rebuilding downtown. Things are going well for the city. But I do see challenges that are coming in the future for us. Affordable housing, lack of parking, just an overall fundamental lack of necessary services for us to grow as a community. And for me, I tend to listen more than resolve things. I was just at an event last week where I heard a lot of ideas being presented and discussed. And I just happened to be on Facebook later on, and I received some criticism for not speaking. And you know, sometimes I tend to take things a little more internally and listen before I respond and before I present some kind of solution. So from my perspective, listening to me is key into how we can resolve our problems. I may not have an issue, I may not have a response today or tomorrow, but I can assure you that anything that I present to my constituents, to administrative staff, or just anybody who seeks help will be a thoughtful and responsible answer to a question or a problem that they seek resolution on. But really the most important thing is, folks, that we need some change. We want to have new leadership, we want to focus on our future, and quite honestly, I'm the person to make us go in that direction. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mellon. Okay, Mayor Panto is recognized for making Easton a cleaner and safer city in both its neighborhoods and its historic downtown. And during his tenure, crime has decreased every year. His financial management has earned the city an increase in its Standard & Poor's rating from a BBB to an A-, which is indicative of the financial management team's success. And just recently, S&P upgraded the city's rating to a positive outlook. Mayor Panter has led an economic development program that's experiencing more than $1 billion of investment. The mayor is also most proud of the housing rehabilitation program he started in the neighborhoods and the many successful small businesses opening and remaining open. Panto is recognized as a leader among local government officials and has held state and national leadership positions. He is currently a member of the advisory board of directors of the National League of Cities. Mayor Panto has a master's degree from Lehigh University, a bachelor's degree from Kutztown University. In 2011, he was awarded an honorary doctorate degree in public service from Lafayette College. As a teacher in the Easton area school district, he was looked upon as being one of the finest. He has senior management experience in the private sector as well. Born and raised in the Easton, Sal is married to the former Pan Searles. They have 4 children and 7 grandchildren. They live on the south side where they're both born and raised, and under his leadership, Easton is becoming a shining star in the region. Mr. Panto, you have the floor for 3 minutes.
Thank you, Doctor. First, I want to thank the Minor Center for Local Government for hosting this. I think it's a great opportunity for you all to hear the candidates. Let's talk about trust. Really, when you go to vote, you want to place your trust into that official. That elected official has your trust. When I ran for office, we all remember the city, what it was like back then. It was Latin Kings, Bloods, Crips, gun violence, street deals, prostitutes walking through our downtown. I promised a cleaner and safer city. There's not one person, including my opponent, who says we're doing a great job, who can honestly say that Easton is not a cleaner and safer city over the last tenure. One of the things that I brought with me is our crime data. Our crime data has a trajectory going straight down. When I took office, it was our Part 1 crimes were over 1,300. Today they're under 400. Still too many, but we're working on it. I think the biggest thing that we've done is taking care of the finances. I guess if I made any mistake, it was giving City Council a balanced budget with no tax increase every year. So they really didn't have to make too many decisions financially. But financially, we brought our city from a double B, almost junk bonds, to a double A minus. Most recently, Standard & Poor's said not only did they upgrade us, our credit rating from a negative to a stable outlook. That stable outlook has more to do about how you're managing your money. Make no mistake about it, Easton is not a wealthy city, nor will we ever be. But it is a well-managed city. So the next mayor, hopefully, will be me, that we could actually lower the cost of living in Easton. Your costs have actually gone down because in constant dollars, if you haven't had any tax increase and you haven't had any major fee increases, since 2008, basically in constant dollars, you're actually saving money. Also, the finances are very important because it allows us to do other things. He talks about the downtown. That's everybody's downtown. I live on South Side, but that's my downtown. College Hill residents, that's our downtown. Westward, that's our downtown. Palmer Township, Forks Township, and all the other suburbs, guess what? That's now their downtown. What a great opportunity. That wasn't the case before I took mayor. That wasn't the case at all. Those people lived out there and they didn't come downtown. They never came downtown. What has happened in downtown? We have big projects, no doubt about it. Those big projects are paying money, more money to the city of Easton so that we can put it into the neighborhoods. And that's what saves the neighborhoods. The reason we're being able to save money or spend money in the neighborhoods today is because 15 years ago we didn't have any money. Thank you.
All right, so for our first question, let's start by thinking globally and acting locally. From the questions that we received, some residents are concerned about cancer-causing chemicals in our tap water. Others report difficulties working with the zoning board on installing solar panels. Others wonder if Easton will have enough charging stations for EVs and enough trees. So the basic question is, how do you plan to put Easton in the forefront of combating climate change and enhancing environmental protection? And Mr. Mellon will be the first to answer this.
Thank you, Dr. Kate. So, I believe we signed on to the Lehigh Valley Mayor's Coalition for Climate Action, which I supported, and I think we are doing a great job. Actually, I think our water is tested; it's very safe to drink. We have several electric vehicle charging stations in the parking garage, which, from my perspective, we can do a lot better. We can place them all throughout the city. We can encourage it. But from my perspective, we can do a lot better. We can place charging stations throughout the city. We can place them in more concentrated neighborhoods, and we can also encourage solar panels. Excuse me, encourage solar panels to be installed. I actually am well aware of the issue with the solar panel installation in the zoning hearing board, and to me, we can help simplify that process. We can encourage people to build and install solar panels. So from my perspective, a lot of things that we can do can be done legislatively, but really to me, it's more on how we convince our residents to do it, how we incentivize them to be more environmentally friendly. Thank you.
As the former chairman of the National League of Cities Environmental Committee, I am very pragmatic when it comes to environmental change. I've traveled across this country talking to other leaders to see what they're doing. We did put the charging station. The administration put that in. The administration has been in the forefront of planting trees. Over 2,000 trees have been planted since I took office. Because we took a part-time forester and made him a full-time forester. To put more experience and expertise that is being utilized. We have a microforest down in Lower Hackett. We have community gardens that are doing extremely well. We have our urban farm over the neighborhood center that's now being expanded. All these things that put fresh fruits and vegetables in the mouths of our residents. to keep them healthy. As far as electric vehicles, we purchased an electric vehicle, our first one, for the police department. Our parking enforcement is now done with electric vehicles. And we just ordered 5 new police vehicles that are all hybrids. Now, we haven't gone exactly to electric cars yet for other vehicles, but we are looking at it. I think it's really important that we do that. When it comes to charging stations, I've asked every vendor, how do you charge for an electric charging station? Because that's what's really important. The complaints I get aren't about the electric charging station. It's because they're free. So if you have a gasoline engine yet, you're going to pay for your gasoline, but the person who's an electric charger doesn't have to. I don't really care. We need to promote clean energy. As far as solar energy, I not only support it, but my fellow councilman back then, before Mr. Milan was on city council, it was Elle Warner, good friend who unfortunately passed away. She is the one who did the solar energy ordinance. And we have a solar energy ordinance that doesn't allow the next door neighbor to build up too tall or plant a tree or some type of an evergreen that's going to shadow those panels.
Thank you, gentlemen. How do you plan to address parking in Easton, including the delay in the 4th Street garage? And why did you vote the way you did on the Pine Street garage? To give you some background, some of the concerns expressed by people submitting questions, added street cleaning and parking spot removals are frustrating some residents. Some residents also report parking shortages and unticketed parking violations on Cattell Street and around Lafayette College, and expression concerns also about the construction of a multi-story building on a circle with no apparent parking. So, Mr. Panto, you'd be the first to respond to that question.
Those are very complex questions. Let me break it down and give you the answers that I think. Parking is always going to be a problem in the city of Easton. It is always going to be a problem if we're successful. Do you want to go back to the 60s when we had all the parking in the world because nobody came to our city? I mean, that's what it comes down to. So we need to manage our parking situation. We have a Walker study that shows that, number one, we built the garage where they recommended. These are parking consultants that are nationally recognized. We built the size that they thought we should have, and the Pine Street garage is being torn down. Why? Because it's outlived its life. It is costing us hundreds of thousands. Matter of fact, the exact numbers are $10 million to get 5 years of life out of that garage. It's an old steel post-tandem construction. When the bars start breaking, the building actually could start to shift. I don't want that on my watch. So we're building a new garage. The new garages are cast concrete structures. They have steel inside them. They're encased in steel. They are built better. They have an average life of 75 years rather than 50 years. Our garage has a life of 50 years of Pine Street, and it's over 65. Why do more people like parking in the new garage behind City Hall? Because the old garage is dark, dingy, and the cement is actually brown. So I think parking is always going to be a problem. We talk about it almost incessantly at City Hall. And whenever we get on the P word, we call it the P word, we know we're going to be there for hours just trying to figure out this. That's why we hired Walker Associates to help us through this process. Parking is always going to be a problem for a city that was laid out in 1752 by William Parsons. It was laid out with streets that are very narrow and do not allow for parking. Thank you.
Mr. Mellon?
Thank you, Dr. Kincaid. So the 2019 Walker study, if I could just clarify a couple of points my opponent made. Yes, the Walker study did tell us to construct a new garage on 4th Street, which I think is about 540 spaces. What he also failed to mention was, for us to maintain the growth that we're going to see for the future, the minimum amount of parking spaces we needed at 3rd and Pine was 750. I actually remember that meeting. I threw up my hand. I asked what this study meant. And the response I got was, well, that's pre-COVID. We don't listen to stuff. We're not going to follow because it's pre-COVID. So I voted against the 3rd and Pine Street garage construction project because I don't think it's going to meet our needs. I personally think that not having a garage for public consumption will create many challenges for us in the future. And quite honestly, that garage, just to reiterate to everybody in this room, that garage, at minimum, for public consumption, should have been 750 parking spaces. And to the other question regarding the 4th Street garage and the delays, I'm not really qualified to answer that because I'm not the administrator. I don't really see any, I'm just a council person. So we have zero oversight over the administration, and I have no authority to force somebody to pay any late fees or to force them to be done by a certain day. So from my perspective, yes, I did vote against the 3rd and Pine Street garage project because I don't think it meets our needs for the future. Thank you.
Since parking is such a hot issue, let me give each candidate an additional minute to speak one way or another on parking or respond to each other. And Sal, you can go first.
Thank you, Dr. Kincaid. I would love to. 4th Street Garage has no oversight. We've had 3 executive sessions where the man has not said one word. 3 executive sessions to tell you why we are not filing or terminating the contractor at that time. Those are legal questions. I am not a lawyer. I rely on Mr. Scheer and Mr. Clark to tell us and advise us on what we should be doing. I wanted to throw the guy off 6 months ago. The man is criminal. He's taking city money. The issue isn't parking. We still have the Pine Street garage up. We still have more spaces available. The issue is the sale of the 3rd and Pine Street garage to City Center has been delayed over 6 months. What has happened in that 6 months? Inflation has gone up. Added $10 million to that project. Went from 70 million to 80 million. And his interest has gone from 3% to 6%. That's my bigger concern. My bigger concern is that we don't have the development that gives the city $1 million a year at the 3rd and Pine Street garage.
Mr. Mellon.
Thank you, Dr. Kincaid. So divulging material from executive session to me is unethical and it's something I wouldn't really respond to. But nevertheless, again, council people, legislators are not authorized to engage in any kind of authority to force a contract to do anything that is above and beyond their contract. As far as I'm concerned, we signed the contract, it's their job to enforce it. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, what is your strategy for effective, equitable, and inclusive economic development for the city of Easton, not only for downtown, but also for the neighborhoods around town? And Mr. Mellon, you can go first on this.
Thank you. My solution is to use data. Many things that I concentrate on in my life as a consultant is data. And we have to figure out what people want, what people need. Telling people what they need or what they want, to me, is counterproductive. I want to have meetings with people. I want to engage our community. I want to engage all the civic groups, Southside Civic Association, College Neighborhood Association, the West Ward. You know, right now, people need things. I can sit there and tell you, I think they want this, I think they want that, and I think they want this. But as far as I'm concerned, I think we make a lot of assumptions on what people need because, quite honestly, I think they're just talking points. I think when I talk to people, some people don't want a community center. Some people don't want a pool. Some people just want a playground with like a water spraying park. Some people just want more restaurants. You know, it's not, to me, it's not the position of the mayor to overpromise things, but to be more of a listener. I don't think it's really the job of the mayor either to go out and say, like, we're going to build restaurants on the south side, or we're going to do this. Because to me, again, folks, we can't keep making empty promises. Just the other day, I heard that we needed a supermarket on the south side because the supermarket just closed down. I'm like, well, that's wonderful, but, you know, supermarkets aren't things that you can just go pop up. They're not magically going to appear if one closes or if you want to build one up. You know, and really, to talk to our people, to figure out what they want and what they need, to me it's conducive to productive discussions. Not listening, not pretending like I know what I want, because I know what I want, but what do you want? What do the constituents want? Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Franco.
Wow, there's a lot to say. The job of the mayor is to be a leader. And the job of a mayor isn't easy. It's not a 30-day job like a country borough. It's a leadership position. And in order to be a leader, listen, the easiest thing for a politician to do is nothing. then you can't blame them for nothing, all right? But if you're gonna make things happen like we've tried to do in our city, we wanna make things happen. Does everything work? No, not at all. Not everything is gonna work. We tried to do a high school sports hall of fame. It failed miserably. Yes, it did fail, but we tried. And you keep trying and trying until you get it right. And guess what? We have $1 billion worth of investment. And I will tell you that maybe the hotel, hey, I told you if we get on P word, it's going to be parking for all night. The hotel that's going to be built on Center Square doesn't have parking. So my opponent voted against it. Let me tell you something. If the private sector has a responsibility to provide parking, they're going to figure it out. If nobody rents that a room there, they're going to figure it out. And they can figure it out better than government. I believe in the private sector, and I think the private sector will do it. He has a bed and breakfast down on North 3rd Street. It's only like 20 rooms. It's a micro hotel. He doesn't have any parking. Guess what? He now rents the space down by Lafayette College by the Snyder Street parking lot, because he figured it out that he has to provide parking. And let it up to the developer, not the city. It's not our role to figure out how they can be successful. They need to figure out how to be successful, not us. Using data. And I don't know a supermarket that closed on the south side. I know we're working with, a number of us are working on trying to get a supermarket back there because we understand they're in arrears of their rent. But I don't know of any, the supermarket is still open. At least it was yet on Sunday when I was there, so if it closed, it must have closed in the last 24 hours. Thank you.
All right, following up again on economic developments. In your view, are all the neighborhoods getting enough attention, or do some get more or less attention than the others? And Mr. Panto, again, you can answer the first.
Thank you, Dr. King.
Follow-up.
I am, listen, I was born and raised on South Side. I owned a grocery store on the west in College Hill. I served on the board of Easton Area Community Center for over 30 years. I'm a neighborhood guy. How can you sit here when we took a brownfield on South Side and put $1 million, we got $1 million grant to clean up that brownfield. Environmentally, it's clean. We built 55 affordable units there. We're going to build a commercial center there. I mean, and right across the street is the Easton Yards project, which is market rate. We work with the school district to build the brand new Cheston School, restored March School. Listen, there are not places that we can build a grocery store except for the one back on the south side. And actually, that's really in Williams Township, but it was annexed to the city, but not the school district. We are concentrating on neighborhoods. But I love people who say, well, we need more restaurants. Okay, who's going to put it? Do you want me to spend taxpayer dollars on building and opening a restaurant? I don't think so. The private sector, the paradigm is shifting. I don't like it. My dad and I own a grocery store that's no longer in business because the paradigm has shifted. Everybody wants to go to the big boxes. I don't like it. But right now we're at a curve on the downside where the mom and pop shops just don't make it. Everybody wants to, when they say they want a supermarket, they want a 100,000 square foot supermarket with 150 cars parking space. Where are you going to put it? There's no place to put it. So I think we really need to concentrate on making them safe and clean. By the way, the street sweeping is an issue. There's no doubt about it. I just got a ticket a couple weeks ago myself. I understand that. I understand it's an issue. But it talks about listening to the residents. The residents came to Easton and asked us to do street sweeping. That's a resident bottoms-up program.
Mr. Mellon.
Would you mind repeating the question, please?
So the question was, are all the neighborhoods getting enough attention, or do some get more or less attention than others?
Well, I mean, I think that's a fair question. I mean, you could say that downtown is being given a lot more attention because it's our downtown. Personally, I think that our neighborhoods are somewhat neglected. Cattell Street used to be a food mecca. Now you have, I think, 3 restaurants on Cattell Street. My thing is, I want to encourage more activities in the south side of West Warwick. One of the things I've been hearing from people is, why can't we have a food truck festival? Why can't we have a food truck festival? Why can't we do it in the south side? Why can't we do it in the West Warwick? These are things that, again, listening to constituents as they walk the neighborhoods give me a lot of ideas. And yeah, I mean, everyone's going to say that we have a great downtown, which we do. And again, I compliment my opponent for helping us build a downtown. But now we want to kind of move out now. The south side, westward, even College Hill, we're all missing something. And again, until I talk to more people and hear what they want to say, I'm not really one to say we should do this or that. I just tend to listen to people more and develop more of a strategy on how we can accommodate what these requests are. You know, to me, people are going to tell me what they want. We're going to be the facilitators. We're going to help them get what they want. Because to me, your voices are more important to me than anything else. I could be an expert on a lot of things, but really listen to constituents, listen to residents, listen to business stakeholders, and tell us how we can do things a little better. To me, that's how we can move forward and how we expand into neighborhoods. Thank you.
Thank you. But how do you propose to promote more affordable housing in Easton? Rents are outrunning the average Estonian's annual income. And what is your view on working with private developers to ensure they devote a percentage of their units to affordable housing? Mr. Mellon, you could go first on this question.
Thank you. I think this is a very complex problem, one that I'm not sure anyone really knows the answer to. But I think really the most important thing we can do is truly to incentivize developers. When you offer developers some kind of incentive to build a certain portion of their apartment buildings or their houses and allow for affordable housing, I mean, I think that's the first step. But again, I'm not the expert. I would rely on the experts and consultants to kind of help me guide and develop a strategy on how we can increase our affordable housing stock. I mean, to me, downtown, for most of our residents, is unaffordable. Whether it's an apartment, whether it's a parking space in one of the garages, or even if it's just going to a restaurant. You know, we have to be more focused on people who can afford to live in our downtown. Projects such as, I forget what the one at Capitals. I heard a one bedroom is going for $2,300 a month. That's a lot of money for some people. A lot of money for most of the people that live in the city. So to me, when I want to go out and encourage affordable housing, again, it's not something I'm overly familiar with. I have enough intelligence and I have knowledge to help devise a program, but I would rely on the experts. You know, there are people out there who want to help us out. I know one of the council candidates who's well-versed in affordable housing, and his ideas are phenomenal. But to me, if it's not something I'm really knowledgeable about, I'm not going to pretend like I know how to do something. I want to engage the experts. I want to talk to people who know what to do. Let them give me the ideas. We had an affordable housing task force plan that, to me, was fantastic. It never came to fruition, but to me, we can do this. We can do a better job of creating more affordable housing stock for everyone to live in the city. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Kincaid. My opponent has been on council for 7.5 years and says the task force never came to fruition. They got a copy of the mayor's Affordable Housing Task Force report, and that report says 3 things. One, we're going to build, we have already under contract, I believe, 15 to 20 units in the city that we bought dilapidated properties. We're going to put people to work cleaning them up and putting people in there that are at least 80% of median income, not less. 2, they're going to create a housing development corporation, and 3, they're going to create a land bank, which we don't have either one of those 2. So I don't know what he's talking about. It's hard for me to talk about that. Listen, affordable housing is a law of supply and demand. We are very fortunate. People want to live in Easton. So what happens when there's only so much supply and the demand is up here, what happens? The price goes up. I don't like it. I don't like it at all. I think it's ridiculous. But let me tell you, it's a state issue. So if you really want, I'm a free market guy, but I believe the state should put into an existence rent control for existing apartments. So if you have an apartment out in the West Ward where single families turn into 2 families, and you're paying $700 a month, just because it's going to $2,000 downtown, doesn't mean that that landlord should be able to raise it to $1,200 the following lease. I don't agree with that. I don't agree that it should go up any more than maybe 1% over inflation. But that's not my job. My job is to run the city, and it's very difficult. It's like I was out walking on Lafayette Street, and the speed is really heavy. I thought it was fast on Cantel Street. When I lived on Cantel Street, it's really fast on Lafayette Street. We can't use radar. The state won't give us radar. We've been trying for 20 years. So that's my answer on affordable housing. It's a big, complex issue, and we are addressing it.
Okay, thank you. Okay, well, we have kind of, I think, a short answer question. Would you approve a revised ordinance to allow backyard hens? And what about roosters? Mr. Panto, you can go first on this question.
No. Our Board of Health has decided that it's against the health regulations to do it, especially with the recent advent of avian flu, and definitely not roosters. I'm more than happy to talk and listen to the people who want chickens, because I think it would provide a fresh egg for people who don't have the money that go out and buy eggs, which are now $5 a dozen, but not roosters. I mean, I can't see roosters cackling at 5 o'clock in the morning.
Thank you. So I'm not really privy to the information that was given to us by the health board. This concept was never formally introduced to council. So until I have more information and speaking with constituents and people who want to present this idea, I'm not really qualified to answer the question because I've never really seen any kind of formal plan yet. Thank you.
Okay. If you were to win election as mayor this year, how would Easton look different 4 years from now? And Mr. Panto, you can start on this question.
First thing is that we would have a better financial footing than when I took office. There's no doubt about that. Our finances are doing extremely well. I expect that in 4 years it'll be cheaper to live in Easton than it is today. I expect that 4 years from now we'll have, we just appropriated $2 million in our ARPA funds for facade restoration and improvements in our neighborhoods. We also have $4 million appropriated for affordable housing. So I think that Easton will be able to do better in the neighborhoods than we've done in the past. And contrary to what popular belief is about the downtown and the developments, I was very fortunate to work for 2 developers in my time out of office. And I learned one thing. The suburbs charge an open space recreation fund for every new home that's built. So in late 2008, early 2009, I created an open space recreation fund. And every developer downtown pays the city open space recreation fund a dollar amount. I think it's $325 a bedroom that they pay towards open space and recreation. So if you see the pickleball court and the new things on College Hill, or the East basketball court at Easton Air Neighborhood Center, or what we're doing out in the Westwood at the Vanderbilt Park, that is all money that is generated downtown. You know, that bad word that we're not supposed to say because it's like we don't care. We take the money from downtown, that investment, and we put it into the neighborhoods, making neighborhoods where I grew up last year was the first year we brought back the summer playground program, open space recreation. Very important.
Mr. Milan.
Thank you, Dr. Keith. To see Easton in 4 years, to me, I can see us being more business friendly, more resident friendly. Today, I think we have several challenges that prohibit people from coming to the city to start a business, to build a house, to renovate things, and to me, we can be more customer service friendly. I want to encourage people to come into the city. I want to encourage business owners to open up shop. I think we do a fairly decent job today in helping us market and advertise for our city. However, I think also a lot of the roadblocks that you can call are hindering people from really wanting to come to the city. We have things that we can do, to me, that are cheap, cost nothing, but just having the ability for someone to just start a business can be simplified. Just having different roundtable discussions with people on who wants to come to the city. And really just, again, how do we encourage entrepreneurship? How do we encourage people to want to invest in our city? What are the incentives? What are the benefits? Where can we do things? And to me, I think we are very closed-minded on data. And again, once we start showing how much data we have and showing people where you can go and simplifying processes to want to encourage growth, to me, is how we can really invest into our neighborhoods. Thank you.
Thank you. Easton has some wonderful walking and riding trails, but they're not quite linked as one. Are you planning to link the trails so as to make them more useful? Mr. Mainland, you can go first on this question.
Thank you. Yes, my goal is to actually link as many as we can that are physically possible. Just last week I heard a constituent request bike lanes on the south side. And for whatever reason, the response given to this constituent was no. But to me, it's not so much a no, it's more of like listening and trying to figure out how we can connect trails, how we can create bike lanes. And to me, talking with people who are experts in this field is really the most important thing. And listening to the people who are out there that are using the trails. How can we make things better for everybody? And to me, these are very small investments to our environment, making Easton more walkable, and really just helping people come enjoy our city. Thank you.
The value of outdoor recreation is so important. It is a big component of our economic development program. Young people want to be able to recreate outdoors. When I made the presentation to Hearst Publishing Company to bring 180 jobs into the city, it was about trails. When I named and I had the honor of naming the Carl Sterner Arch Trail Carl Sterner, and the Arch Trail on there was just, the partnership with the college and the volunteers there was just phenomenal. And people are down there walking every day. Yes, we need to link them. Right now we're trying to get a grant for a $5 million pedestrian bridge going from the Larry Holmes Drive pump station across to Roosevelt State Park, so that people don't, on their bikes, walking or running, don't have to go across the Dr. Smith Bridge and down a very dangerous Route 611 South. We are always looking at linking our trails because it's become very important. As our youth start to move back to the city, that's what they look for. They're looking for recreational opportunities. And that's why we're putting more money in making those investments. It's very important. I mean, 2 years ago, I had a friend come in from Las Vegas I graduated with, who was talking about pickleball. I didn't even know what pickleball was. Today it's the rave for adults. And we have pickleball courts on the College Hill. We're going to put them in the rest of the city. I mean, recreation is very important to young people. And I think it's very important for older people. And that's why when we build a community center on Westwood, we want to make it a community center and a senior center, because our senior centers, the county closed both of our senior centers in the city. They have no place to go. One last thing. One of our trails, the Carl Sterner Arch Trail, links the downtown waterfront with the Simone Silk Mill. Gee, is that a neighborhood? I think it is. That was a $70 million project that was vacant for 25 years. And we used that $9 million of grant money to remediate all the environmental lead, paint, asbestos, and soil remediation.
Okay, here's a follow-up from the audience. I am a student who rows on the river every other day. What is your plan to manage the homeless encampments growing along the river? And Mr. Panto, you can start on this question.
Homelessness is another one of those national problems that I don't know how to fix. But I'll tell you why. Just about everyone knows me and I know them. And during the winter months, we would never think about going in there and disrupting their homeless camps. That is the only shelter they have. I think it's imperative that people who live in Easton should have a roof over their heads. I mean, and in this country. I think it's a terrible thing that we are in America, the richest country in the world, that doesn't have people who don't have a roof over their heads. Now, that doesn't mean they shouldn't have to live up to some standards. And the cleanliness is one of the things that we have to get them to clean up their area. I get a lot of complaints to my office from like Lehigh Drive. They're usually on the railroad tracks, and they throw their garbage over the side. We put garbage cans down there for them to use and things, and we're forcing them to use them. I think the homelessness is. I mean, you can ask my wife. I mean, when it's really cold outside in the middle of winter, I lay awake hoping none of them freeze to death. I mean, they are part of us. Whether we want to make comments about them or not, they are American citizens that we should be taking care of. It should be done. There's no Department of Human Services in Easton. It's at the county and state level. And that's where we need to direct our resources, to tell them that we don't have the Department of Human Resources. They have a whole building out on Emory Boulevard. It's called the Northampton County Human Services Building. We need to get a cooperation with them to make sure that they help us with the homeless encampments. Many of our homeless encampments are people, many of our homelessness people, are people who have mental illness or they have drug and alcohol dependence. They need help. They need mental health. And when the state decided to balance their budget and close all the state hospitals, we got all the people. I think it's a real problem we need to address.
Thank you. I think this is one of the questions that I'm actually going to agree with my opponent on, most of it. But I think we do have the resources, not within the city, but within our partners. Safe Harbor is an excellent organization we can go to for help. The Code, when we have the Code Blue program during the wintertime, where the churches in the city open up these individuals so they can come into a warming house. They don't have to sleep in the cold. These are things that we can do with just community partners. Yes, the county is responsible. We should work with them to kind of improve the programs. Let's see where we can help these people find housing. We don't want to get rid of people. We want to help them. And to me, we can use the resources. We can contact our friends at the state, contact our friends at the federal level. I mean, even the local level, like Northampton County. These are things that we can do better to help people reacclimate into society. Yes, there are some people who are just not going to be willing to be helped. And those are people, unfortunately, you really can't do anything about them. But at least we can give them a helping hand. You know, we can help them, we can help guide them to find housing, find employment, you know, help them come back to Safe Harbor for a bite to eat. And to me, there are things that I see improving on, which, again, it's a very complex problem. And he is right. It's a very complex problem. It's not easy. There's no easy fix to it. But to me, working with our partners, developing stronger relationships, providing better resources, I think we can help just maybe not alleviate the problem, but help reduce the problem. Thank you.
What will you do to make Easton, a city built in 1752, less dependent on cars for transportation? Elon, you can start with this question.
I'm not sure if that's even remotely a possible scenario at this point. You know, I don't think we have the public transportation to kind of help us with that solution. I mean, I think we are too reliant on cars, whether it's fossil fuels, or even now we're going to electric vehicles. Atlanta could offer more routes, more stops, but again, I think our society is not like a metropolitan, like New York or Philadelphia. So to me, going back to, you know, the way we were back in the 1700s, to me would not be conducive to a functioning society. I think we could do much better with maybe car sharing, but as you're seeing now, people are working from home more. You know, we see that now. So to me, to have like less cars on the road, I think will be an insurmountable feat to really accomplish when everyone in this room has at least 2 or 3 cars. Thank you.
America is way too dependent. Americans are way too dependent on their cars. When I was a teacher, I taught a scenario about Iraq. And there was a story about Iraq and how the tribe at the time washed it every week and gave it a bath and took care of it. And it really was, when we start to get into discussion with the students, it wasn't Iraq, it was a RAC, it was a CAR. Americans are too reliant on their cars. And we like to say, you know, when I was chairman of the environmental committee, I would lobby the Congress for this. I spoke to the congressman on this and congresswoman. I mean, they say, oh, we can't subsidize buses or trains. But yet, out of William Penn Highway in 33, they spent like $8 or $9 million on a parking ride that's free. We do subsidize cars. We subsidize them a lot. And I think, and we build all the roads and highways. We need to do the same thing. And I know a lot of people are looking for that romantic train trip into New York City. What we really need is light rail just connecting the 3 cities and the industrial parks. See, the problem with the buses is we are sprawl. The suburbs are allowed to sprawl. So what happens is, if you work in where I used to work, I was a vice president of coordinated health, we were on Highland Boulevard. The bus stop is on Route 512. It's another 1.5 miles for you to walk. So people don't walk. So the buses finally put on a bike rack. So now they can at least bike back and forth. And I would encourage them to do that. As far as, I didn't say that we couldn't do bike lanes. We could do shared bike lanes. We can't do bike lanes. Our roads on South Side are not wide enough. but they're certainly wide enough to do shared bike lanes, which we have downtown.
By way of a follow-up question, what proposals can you offer to calm or slow down traffic on some of our major streets, like Cattell Street, St. John Street, Northampton Street? And Mr. Panto, you can start with this question.
I don't want to be redundant, but I've been fighting the state legislature. Last year, we were this close to having radar for local police. We are the only state in the entire country, the only state that doesn't allow local police to use radar. The only one that is upheld in every district magistrate court for speeding is radar guns, because everybody assumes that they're correct. I don't like the speed. I testified at a Senate hearing in Monroe County. I went up and I testified on that. And the state senator says to me, he says, well, Mayor, isn't it really true that all you want is another funding source? I said, I just want a safety source. I don't want a funding source. I said, your state police just basically said that they could give 2 tickets an hour. Of the $125 fine, the state would get $100, the city would get $25. If you give 2, that's $50. That's not enough money to pay the overtime for the police officer. So I thought I made common sense there, but he didn't vote for it. Now, we have the support of Senator Busco, we have the support of State Representative Bob Freeman, but we don't have the support of the rural state senators and House of Representatives who really control the state and Senate, because they're out there. They're out west where it's more rural, and they don't have the problem. They don't have the traffic on Lafayette Street or Cattell Street or St. John Street. I mean, I remember being a college student fighting PennDOT's widening of that strip, and we at least got them to put a median in the middle. That was their goal. We're always looking at safety for traffic. We did it on Philadelphia Road when we did the CVS project a few years back. We got the developer to agree to pay for a median from Philadelphia Road to Line Street. PennDOT wouldn't approve it.
Mr. Milan.
Thank you. So I think relying on the state to fix this problem is, again, I think it's to me, it's a waste of time. I see Chief Scalzo in the room. His police department sets up different enforcement activities during high times where we see a lot of complaints on Lafayette Street, for example, and it becomes a turn. Now, we can't do it every day, I'm assuming, just because of the challenges. However, when you start enforcing, when you start having these minor issues where people are just kind of speeding, you have to prevent them from doing it. And when you have police officers who are acting in a capacity to stop the speeding from happening, you might actually prevent people from speeding then. I think working with PennDOT to prevent, to install some more traffic calming things on our major thoroughways, to me is a great idea. They are state highways, unfortunately, so we can't do much without their permission. However, I'm not sure there's a wonderful solution to this problem that we're having. But really though, police deterrents actually work. They're effective. So to me, I give all the credit to the chief and his department for really helping us keep our streets clean. Thank you.
Thank you. Easton has some of the highest taxes in the Lehigh Valley, and even though property taxes have not been increased in recent years, the earned income tax has been increased to 1.45% on city residents, and people who work in the city and don't pay tax to another municipality. With all the new development and revenue coming into Easton, what are your plans for reducing taxes? Mr. Milan, you can start on this.
Thank you. I think, did you say 1.45?
For the city.
It's 1.95. The correct tax rate for both non-resident and resident is 1.95. And really, to answer that question truthfully, is to really do a deeper dive into the financials. I tend to ask more questions about our financials when I do get them, but it seems like every time I want to ask for a set of financials, we're under audit, like President Trump's tax returns for under audit for like how many years now. So for me to get responses and to really do a deeper dive into this information becomes somewhat a challenge. And quite honestly, I tend to bang my head more on these things because I feel like getting the information to do a deeper dive and to do a deeper analysis is just, it's troubling, it's aggravating, it's very frustrating. And to me, if I were to become the mayor, My first order of business is to really take a deeper analysis, figure out where the issues are, where we can cut costs, where we can cut revenues, where we can cut fees, where we can cut taxes. Because to me, we're too reliant on taxes today. Yes, he's going to say that our tax rate is 24.95 mils, and that the EIT is for resident EIT and non-resident is for our pension. However, we can do things that are more creative instead of just relying on taking money out of people's pockets. But to be honest with you, until I get a deeper dive into the information, to the data, I'm not really qualified to answer, because quite honestly, I'm not sure how bad it is or how good it is or what we can do to change things. Because to me, knowing the information, having reliable information, can help me present a plan for our future. Thank you.
I'm sorry. I thought you've been on city council for 7.5 years. If you want information, you come down and you get it. City Hall is at 123 South 3rd Street, by the way. You know, the finances, as I said earlier, I expect that it'll be cheaper to live in Easton in 3 or 4 years. I see exactly the strategy and the vision we had to create the financial foundation we needed changing. And as more and more people move into our city, our population went up for the first time in 5 decades. Now, he has a video that he shows, and let me just explain something. If you have 24,000 people trying to take care of a 29 or 30,000 population city that threw out 3,700 residents during urban renewal that live downtown, you're trying to stretch your finances over 24,000 instead of 30,000. So growing your population is good for easing the financial burden on each one of you. And that's what my job is. My job is, very frankly, the last 16 years, we've had to keep them level. But my staff knows that we don't go into a budget without zero budgeting. We want to keep that budget level. Now, I firmly believe that within the next 4 years, we will lower it. And what can we lower? That pain in the neck per capita tax that you have to pay? It's not a pain in the neck. It costs us more money to collect it than it does to have it. It's $90,000 a year out of a $30 million budget. Running a city our size with our poverty level is difficult. Tough decisions are made. He makes a big thing about the 81 furloughed employees. Let me just show you the memorandum of agreement that was signed by AFSCME and was negotiated with them on the furlough. We don't do anything without crossing our T's and dotting our I's. Okay? That's what we do. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, in your tenure as an elected official, what changes have you made in the Easton community that you're most proud of? Mr. Panto, you can go first on this question.
I show a slide. I do a lot of PowerPoints out in the suburbs. Over in Phillipsburg, I've been asked to do this on the history of the city. And the last slide I show, and just as part of the campaign, somebody asked me, what do you want your legacy to be? I don't want a legacy. I am very happy with that slide. That slide shows the Red Rover football team coming out of the field house with the Easton flag. That slide shows the award-winning Red Rover marching band with the Easton flag. You wouldn't have seen that before. Kids are proud to say they're from Easton again, and that's the key to turning around a city. I can honestly say that my legacy is that people are more proud to live in Easton today and say they live in Easton than they were before I was in office, and that's my legacy. And I think very honestly that one of the things that I want to get to also tonight is that we both agree that the mayor should be on council. You know what this is? This is the charter that you all approved in 2007. He can't change that. He's leading you to believe that he can change it. He can't change it without changing the charter. Only the voters can change the charter. Only a voter referendum. City council can make a motion and an ordinance to put it on the ballot. Has he done that in 7.5 years? No. But all of a sudden, he doesn't believe the mayor should be on council. Thank you.
Mr. Milan.
Could you repeat the question, Dr. Kincaid? Repeat the question, please.
The question is, in your tenure as an elected official in Easton, what changes have you made in the Easton community you're most proud of?
I mean, I think I've voted for legislation that has increased our zoning. I think we've increased our population. I think we've allowed buildings to be constructed. Personally, I've authored several pieces of legislation recently on ethics, strengthened ethics. But for me, it's a collaborative event. The mayor's on council, I'm on council, we have 5 other colleagues who are on council, and it's not just a 1-person or a 2-person collaboration, it's 7 people. So I'm not taking credit for anything specifically, because I think working as a team, to me, is how we move forward. It's how we resolve things. Unfortunately, we just disagree on a lot more things because, well, I mean, because I think we have different opinions, or quite honestly, we just don't want to agree because it's campaign season. However, that being said, I don't really take credit for a lot of things because to me, it's not really my job to give myself a point for having an ordinance or resolution done. To me, it's working hard for my constituents. It's working hard for the residents. It's working hard for the business stakeholders. And really, I want to make Easton better. So to sit here and tell you that I did this or I did that, it's really not how I operate, because to me, I want to make it better for everybody in this room. Thank you.
All right, the city charter has just been mentioned, and so to the candidates, do you believe we need a new city charter that would at least remove the mayor from city council? And if yes, what form of municipal government would you propose under a new charter? And should a new charter include term limits for mayor and/or council members? So, Mr. Milan, you will go first on this question.
Thank you. Yes. So to echo my opponent's comments regarding my time on council and that I could introduce a referendum, of course I could have. But unfortunately, when you have someone who chairs council and is also the chief executive of the city, it's kind of conflicting. It's like being Batman and Bruce Wayne all in one person. Okay? So really, yes, I am touting that I think the mayor should be removed from council. And quite honestly, having a master's degree in public administration, we study these types of government. And to me, a council mayor form of government is really the most effective. You have checks and balances. Right now, again, you have one person who literally controls city administration and city council. I mean, I could change it, but I can guarantee you that it won't go anywhere because no one's going to support it. But to me, we need to separate the mayor from council. It does create transparency. And as for term limits, I'm a big proponent of term limits. As for my council members, that's up to them if they decide to do term limits. Me, I've been pushing for this since I started campaigning. It's a campaign promise. Even if I can't get a referendum to do term limits, I will assure everyone in this room I will do no more than 2 terms. You can document this, you can take screenshots of this, you can take videos of this. 2 terms. Because to me, you want to have a fluid government. You want to have new blood, you have new ideas, new creativity. And by not having a systematic way of saying, you know what, you have 2 terms and you're not on council, we're not going to have a new government. We're going to have the same type of government. We've had the same government for 16 years. Same leader for 16 years. Look at Allentown. Allentown had no term limits, and now they have term limits. So yes, I am pushing for term limits, and I'm pushing for the mayor to be removed from council. Thank you.
Thank the Lord we're not Allentown. Okay, Allentown has a lot of problems and police issues out there. So comparing us to Allentown is not something I would like to do. I do agree with this. I like the strong mayor form of government. I believe that strong mayor form of government, I would much rather be sitting in a little kid's seat making my recommendations to council. I believe 95% of all actions of the city council came as recommendations from the mayor. His most recent Channel 69 blurb said that he hired additional firefighters and police officers. We did that. Our administration proposed it. We have proposed 3 additional firefighters, and we proposed to go from 63 to 64 police officers. I think no one wants the credit. The credit doesn't go to me. The credit goes to my staff. They are phenomenal. And the reason I was on the Charter Commission, by the way, and I voted against the charter. I personally didn't like this. What I do like about this charter is the home rule. Home rule is really a much better form of government than third-class city. So I like, and I've gone to Altoona, I've gone to Erie, I've talked about home rule. I'm just invited down to Lancaster. as a person to make a presentation to their charter commission. And I will tell them that I believe that the mayor and council is not a good forum for local government. But the home rule is definitely something that the state should look at. So I would agree with him on that, and I would much rather make the recommendation from the little kid seats and where my city administrator, but remember why you voted for that. We were a city that was tainted with political appointments. The city administrator hires, I mean, I don't hire. People call me for a job, I don't hire. The mayor is completely removed from the hiring process, except for my directors, who I do have a lot of influence over. But that's what you voted for. Thank you.
How would you plan to promote more diversity, equity, and inclusion in hiring and appointments at all city levels? Right now, the vast majority of the city's highest paid employees are men. The highest paid woman employee of the city is the 82nd highest employee. And Mr. Panto, you would be the first to respond to this question.
I believe diversity, equity, and inclusion is a major backbone and foundation for our government, our administration. We go out, we try to recruit. I recruited Carlton to be my assistant. We recruit. Our biggest challenge is fire and police. I will tell you that right now. I want to be able to appoint the first female firefighter. And it's not going to be easy. That person just better have a strong back, because it's not going to be easy. But same with minorities. Right now, the minority makeup of our police department has been the best it's ever been in a well, forever, historically. So I want to make sure that we are hiring qualified people first. I will tell you that every one of my directors is qualified to be that director. Not one person is a political appointment. And I don't want to see the city go back to that, revert back to that. A lot of promises are being made about JOBSs. I'm not making any promises. I have a staff that works hard for this city, works long and hard, and they make my job look good, but they are doing a lot of the yeoman's work. So, diversity, equity, and inclusion, I think my record speaks for itself. I was a school teacher. I was a member of the Easton Community Center's Board of Directors since when I was 19 years old. I believe that my record for diversity, equity, and inclusion is stalwart, and we will continue to improve that the makeup of city government should look like the city.
Mr. Milan.
Thank you. So DEI is a very complex matter. I think people tend to throw these terms out. They're like buzzwords and they're good campaign promises. But really, it's about attracting the best people for the most equitable pay. You know, we have jobs that pay well. We have some jobs that, to me, don't pay well. And yes, they're under some kind of collective bargaining agreement, but really, to me, it's working with the human resources staff to really figure out how we can improve this. How can we develop a better program? You know, what other recruitment methods can we do? What are retention methods that we can implement? And to me, just to go out and say that I want to go do this, it's all well and good. It's another campaign promise. I mean, I'm not sure how I'm promising jobs to anybody that I was just accused of, but it's fair. I think a lot of people are promising a lot of things these days, but nevertheless, to me, we could theoretically look at experts. Again, we have a great human resource staff. They're qualified for this. I'm not the end-all be-all when it comes to HR matters. You know, we have a staff. What can we be doing better? You tell me what we can do. What do you need to help us improve our programs? You know, do we need salary studies? Do we need to go through our job descriptions to make sure that they're compliant? You know, how do we recruit people? How do we kind of have a better program of saying, you know what, this is the place to be? You know, one of my biggest things is, if I win, is to make Easton one of the top places to work for in Lehigh Valley. I see all these other companies get it, but you know what? I want to focus on making our city one of the best places to work in Lehigh Valley. That's what I want to strive for. Thank you.
Switching to a different topic, question from the audience here. Do you believe that Easton is in a healthy enough spot to participate in the regionalization efforts of Mayor Reynolds of Bethlehem? Is this in our best interest? And Mr. Milan, you could respond first to this question.
One more time, I'm sorry?
All right. Do you believe that Easton is in a healthy enough spot to participate in the regionalization efforts of Mayor Reynolds of Bethlehem? Is this in our best interest?
I'm not really sure what the regionalization efforts are, to be honest with you. There was never anything I'm aware of.
To develop more regional cooperation between...
Oh, yeah, I mean, of course, thank you. I'm sorry, my apologies. Yes, I'm definitely all about regionalization. I think what we're seeing here in today's world is public safety is struggling. Firefighters, EMTs, paramedics, police, okay? We need to focus on these issues as a conglomerate, as a whole. And I know people tend not to want to lose their territories, their prized possessions. But in the EMS world, we call it the white hat syndrome, where we don't want to lose the white hat. And the white hat in EMS and fire is the person who wears the chief's hat. And I'm not saying about regionalization of police, fire, but we need to start focusing on this problem because, to me, one of my biggest loves is EMS. As a former provider, I see how people are struggling. I see how we can't recruit, we can't retain, because these jobs are terrible. They don't pay well, and they struggle because these industries are we're having a hard time finding people to work. So yes, sometimes in the city, you call 911 for having some kind of medical issue, you're gonna wait a while because they may be on different calls, or our resource may be used in other neighborhoods, other municipalities. So yes, to echo Mayor Reynolds' regionalization efforts, I do agree with it. What those are entirely, I'm not sure yet. I'd like to talk to him and find out more what his thoughts are. But to me, one of the biggest things is public safety with a specific target of EMS. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Panto.
Lehigh Valley, Pennsylvania has started about 20 years ago. We have the Lehigh Valley United Way that joined all the different Lehigh County and Northampton County United Way. We have the Lehigh Valley Economic Development Corporation, Lehigh Valley Planning Commission, the Lehigh Valley Chamber of Commerce, which is now the 6th largest chamber of commerce in the country. I believe in regionalization. I believe in the metro government. We're going to get a metro government? No. We are getting beat by southern communities who, like Nashville, like 500 square miles. But every local municipality takes care of their own local needs. But the big picture is done collectively. And I think that's where the Lehigh Valley is headed. I won't see it in my lifetime. Nobody in this room will probably see it. It's going to take a long time. But the metro government system is a good system because it shares the cost over a larger group of people for things like firefighting, police, EMS, to pay those people what they need and what they deserve. We lost out on a number of major industries who moved down south because we couldn't compete. The Lehigh Valley is made up of like 67 communities, but we're all one community. When I go to Allentown, I go through like 10 different municipalities before I get there. Some of those municipalities have a population of 400. So they call us. We just helped West Easton Borough. They called up, they said, could you buy the salt for us and keep the road salt for the winter? I said, sure. That's what cooperation is all about. You cooperate. I have a great working relationship with our suburbs. We have 6 suburbs that I call 3 boroughs, Glendon, West Easton, and Wilson, and 3 townships, Williams, Forks, and Palmer. We need regional support because we can't do it alone. West Easton had that huge fire a couple weeks ago. Our fire department was there. Our fire department was there. And we also called out overtime because we should do that. It's mutual aid.
Thank you. A number of people expressed concern about the expansion of Lafayette College, and so that raises the question, what are your plans for improving the relationship between Lafayette College and its surrounding community and the city as a whole? And Mr. Panto, you can respond first to this question.
Lafayette College is the largest employer in the city, the largest taxpayer in the city. And I know that most people think they don't pay taxes, but they do. all the property they own off of the main campus is paid in all three taxes: city, county, and school. They're paid. They also pay the city over almost $1 million in earned income tax. I don't believe they should be left unchecked, but I will say that the cooperation with the new president is better than it was before. And I think that the expansion of the college is like the expansion of any big business in a community. It needs to be done. Brings up about the residence hall. Why did I support it? Because colleges are a business. When you and I went to college, we were in a 10 by 10 cement block, cinder block room. That's not what students want today. They want an apartment with a private bedroom, a living room, a kitchen, and that's what they want. So if you're going to compete and you want Lafayette College to be here instead of closing like a lot of other four-year liberal arts schools, you need to compete. And you need to have my school, where I graduated when I was an undergraduate, Kutztown, they have a great sports facility. They didn't have that when I was there. Why? Because kids look for that today. They want to work out. They want to recreate. And they have a student center. We didn't have that. It was a pool hall. That's all it was. If you want to be attractive, you need to change with the times. But that doesn't mean, and I was very vocal in supporting the residence hall, and I think they're beautiful. I was also very vocal about them putting the bookstore there, because I could not go down to Farallon into the basement to the bookstore. So the bookstore is very easy for me to get to now. So I think, yes, the college is very important, but they should be left unchecked. And the working relationship I have with President Hurd is to the point where she can call me and I can call her about any issue we have.
Thank you. So when we went through the zoning rewrite to allow the college to expand onto McCartney Street, it was a very tumultuous time for everybody. A lot of people had many ideas, they had a lot of opinions, but really it became this very tense adversarial relationship. And what I did after that, believe it or not, was I went and I tried to figure out how we can make things better. So believe it or not, I actually went and got certified in town and gown relations through an organization called the International Town and Gown Association. And really it's about forming relationships, not transactional relationships, but just relationships. And I can see how that benefits us now, because with the current president, she had a community meeting where they were describing their strategic plan, and quite honestly, the information presented to us during that meeting, to me, was incredible. The amount of information she was reporting, she had a consultant from Michigan that time, and to me, to show transparency and to show what she was doing, to me, built more trust. I think people want to trust, not just with the college, not just with us, not with anybody. I think just there has to be transparency. People want to see what's going on. You know, and quite honestly, I think with this administration at the college, I think you're seeing that now. You're not having backdoor meetings, you're not having all these closed sessions. You know, they're being upfront about what they want to do. What's their vision? Where do they see themselves in 5 years and 10 years? And to me, when you're open about that stuff, it just forms a stronger relationship. Thank you.
Thank you. What is your position on strengthening or weakening the city's context-sensitive design standards, and also on warehouse construction in river corridor zones? And Mr. Milan, you can respond first to this.
I would just go on the record that I'm very much opposed to warehouses. Context-sensitive designs, to me, should be looked at. You know, it's one of those things where, you know, is it really the job of a city, in my opinion, to dictate what should be done? You know, downtown, Historic District Commission, they have very strict rules. And I'd like to respond to a claim made earlier about the hotel, why I voted against it. It wasn't because of parking, it was because the certificate of appropriateness was given to that owner to demolish One Center Square. It's not because of a parking issue, it's because they're going to demolish the building. And to me, we shouldn't be demolishing buildings like that. We should be restoring. We should keep the historic integrity of these buildings. And simply just knocking them down because it's a matter of ease, a matter of simplicity, just to make it easier for them to construct a new hotel, to me is not conducive to maintain that historical integrity. And for me, that is not something I want to push for. I want to make sure that we retain that integrity. We retain the look and feel of a historic district commission. And really strengthening our ordinances, to me, and making them more simple. Simplifying it. When people look at laws and ordinances, they have a hard time reading them. Yes, they're supposed to be complex, but we should be doing a better job of educating our people, educating businesses, educating residents, property owners, because they're making our city beautiful. Why would I want to create restrictions and barriers to make them want to do something when they may just simply misunderstand what they're reading? So to me, simplifying, talking, educating, to me, would actually help us in improving our designs. Thank you.
Mr. Panto.
Wow. If we had the historic district back in the 60s, we would have ripped out half of the heart of downtown Easton. Our waterfront, our Lebanese community was gone because we had no controls. You buy a property downtown Easton, you know that it's a local historic district, you're told it's a local historic district, and your value is higher because of the local historic district. As far as One Center Square, yes, they are knocking it down and rebuilding it exactly as it is today. So you won't notice the difference. I just had another call today from a person who wants to do the same thing up on 6th Street. My opponent has been on council for 7.5 years. The ordinances are their primary responsibility. If he has these issues, why doesn't he bring them up? Bring them up. Maybe we should talk about it and discuss it. I believe you will see an ordinance from me after the election, because I did not want to boggle it down in politics, that everything from 5th Street beyond is still in the local historic district, but the height of a building is lowered. Right now, he has these people supporting him on 6th Street. Well, if he was doing his job on council, he would have said, oh, I'm going to lower the height of those by right to 60 feet rather than 140 feet. That developer has a right. I don't think it should be there. All right? Has a right. So we work with the developer to get it 3 stories in the 6th Street and 6 stories in the back. That's the best we could do. And contrary to popular belief, the mayor does not vote on any of these projects. Support them, work with the developer to try to get them to be better and context sensitive, but it is residents. The planning commission is made up of residents, the zoning board is made up of residents, and the historic district review board is made up of residents. 17 residents make the decision, not the mayor, not council.
Let's give Mr. Milan 60 seconds to respond to Mr. Panto, and then we'll give Mr. Panto a 30-second response.
So to respond to the 6th Street project, the reason why I voted against it because in our ordinances, if a project essentially dwarfs other properties, we can deny it. So me changing ordinances is a great idea, but again, it comes from his administration. I don't oversee planning codes. I oversee the administration. Those are my responsibilities. However, when you're building a 48-unit project in South 6th Street, it's going to dwarf the other properties. So yes, I voted against it because I think it was out of context with the neighboring properties, which ironically is allowed to be denied based on the current regulations. Thank you.
30 seconds.
I think the vision, you have a vision and strategy for development of the city, you would have made the changes to the ordinance. The zoning amendment should have been done, and it will be done as soon as this election is over. I will change the ordinance, I will propose, and I will try to get my fellow councilmen to vote with me on changing that height limit to something smaller from 5th Street West. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. The two candidates agreed that before making closing statements, each candidate would ask one question of the other candidate, whichever question they would like to ask. And so, Mr. Panto, would you like to pose a question to Mr. Milan?
Pete, you call yourself an outlier. The definition of an outlier is a person detached from the main body. And that is you. You vote. You take pride in voting on 6-1, because you can't get 3 other people on your council to go along with you. If you could, in the last 7.5 years, change the ordinances, which you can do, what would you propose in your next bill?
My next bill? I mean, I have nothing planned for introduction this week. I mean, it's an interesting question because I vote no on things because to me they're wrong for the city. And quite honestly, just for everyone's clarity in this room, we vote on ordinances and resolutions probably 98% of the time. So because I'm called an outlier because I vote on things that I don't agree with, to me is a little misleading. However, that being said, I have nothing on the agenda for this week. I have nothing on the agenda for 2 weeks from now. I did have ordinances that I want to strengthen ethics on, which we did vote on. Somebody didn't agree with the fact that we should be rewarding facade grants to our boards and commission members, to which that he wants to now discuss that in a future meeting where we can now give facade grants to people who are on boards and commissions. To me, I think it's not really appropriate. If we're not allowing council members, administrative people, employees of the city to receive facade grants, then that should be a direct extension into boards and commission members.
Okay, Mr. Milan, would you like to pose a question to Mr. Panto?
Sure. On November 16, 2022, you spoke at the CACLV annual meeting where the mayors of Bethlehem and Allentown were in attendance. During that speech, your exact statement was, I represent a city that has the highest poverty rate in the Lehigh Valley, but I don't want to change that. I just want to bring in the wealthier people to make the percentage of low-income people go down. The reaction from Allentown Mayor Turk was momentous as he wiped his face in dismay at the comment. However, given the amount of high-end development supported by your administration and generous donations found on your campaign finance report from donors who have received favorable accommodations on some of our most valuable real estate, for example, 185 South 3rd Street, where the sales price to a campaign contributor was $2.5 million less than what we paid. What is your vision to make all parts of Easton livable, as opposed to a singular section, such as downtown, where rents are exceeding market rates, therefore creating inequities to the majority of residents?
I don't know how you can say that rents are exceeding market rate. The market rate is what it is. That's what it's called, market rate. Let me just address my comments. My comments were very simple. I grew up in public housing, okay, till I was 10 or 11 years old. I grew up in Delaware Terrace, the worst public housing project in the entire city. But my dad worked hard and made me work hard to get ourselves up, and we picked ourselves up by the bootstraps. And we worked and we became successful. I don't like the fact that he says that I don't like poor people. It's not true. I was one of them. I was one of them. But I worked hard to get myself out. I got an education. Let's look at this again. What I said, and maybe he doesn't understand the difference between percentage and real numbers. What I said was we have 8,000, let's say, I think it's 8,000. We have 8,000 people on the poverty level, or what I would call the working poor. And we have 24,000 people in the city. We used to have 35,000, okay? What we're doing is bringing in those extra 5,000 people are wealthier, and they're affording our tax base. We're not changing the 8,000 people that live here that are in poverty. We didn't throw anybody out. We have never gentrified the city. I will not gentrify the city. Anything I can help, but guess what? It's up to the market. If the owners of the Lafayette Hotel decide to sell, they decide to sell. I don't have any control over that. Poor people are living in a city. They're not moving to the suburbs. They can't. So I don't understand the analogy there. The analogy is very simple. Percentage will go down as more wealthy people move up. Those wealthy people are not rich. They're just hardworking middle-class people. Thank you.
Thank you both. It's time for closing statements. Before the closing statements, I just want to clarify that my being on this side of the stage doesn't imply favoring one candidate over another. It's simply a function of a last-minute room rearrangement, and I'm sitting near the timekeeper, so that's all that it really is. As per our coin toss, Mr. Milan will make the first closing statement. Each candidate will have 4 minutes to make a closing statement.
Thank you. First, I want to thank everybody for attending this evening, taking time out of your schedules, and to sit here and basically listen to our ideas and kind of figure out how we can chart a path for our future. I also want to thank Dr. Kincaid and the Minor Center and the staff for putting on a well-organized, well-functioning debate. But really, I want to summarize by telling you this. I will give my opponent a lot of credit. He has helped us grow into a very magnificent city. We have wonderful development, we have great restaurants, we become an attraction city. But don't be afraid of change though. Human behavior, humans, we don't like change. And don't worry, I'm not gonna take us back 30 years, which I was accused of just the other day. First of all, it's impossible because we're on a trajectory now to really make ourselves even better. But having different ideas, having a difference of opinion, separating the mayor from council, having term limits, it's going to allow us to be more creative and allow us to really grow and mature as our city grows and matures. We're developing. I want to take our city and move it out. I want to go to the south side. I want to go to the westward. I want to make College Hill even a better destination. But we need to focus on having somebody who knows how to be a better listener. Creative ideas. Let's use the data. Let's help us move forward. Let's help us grow. We can actually do a lot of these things if we just kind of come back to an effort where everyone's collaborating. And for me, this is why I'm here to talk to everybody. I've talked to a lot of people when I'm walking neighborhoods. I'm going to the different events. And really, I'm hearing the same thing. What can you do for me? Well, I'm not sure yet because I want to hear what your issues are. I want to be a better listener. I want to focus on better ideas that are just promises or, yeah, we should do this. Do I think we should put a community center westward? I have no idea. Do I think we should put it in the south side? I have no idea. It's a great idea, but actually coming through with a solid idea, a formal plan, to me is much harder than just sitting here and saying, we want to build a community center. That's a great idea. But again, we need to be more strategic. How can we get there? What can we do? How can we make our city better? How can we make our city more livable for everybody? We can do a much better job, everybody. And I want to thank each and every one of you for coming tonight and listening to me. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Kincaid. Again, thank you all for coming. I appreciate you being here, listening to our both opponents and my opponent and myself. You have the power of term limits. The government doesn't need to tell you who to vote for, and they don't. But you have the power of term limits. Every 4 years, I'm up for evaluation. And every 4 years, and this, I'm making this publicly known now that there will be a change of guard. Should I win this election, which I fully expect to do, this is my last term. I believe very strongly against term limits only for the executive, but not for the legislators. Okay? I mean, let's face it, he's only talking about term limits for the mayor. He's not talking about term limits for himself or the council. I will tell you that this is my last term. And I say that, somebody says, well, you said that before. No, what I said before was, this will probably be my last term. But then guess what? That was January when I took office, and in March we hit COVID. COVID-19, I didn't even know what COVID was. It didn't hit the Northeast yet. I get invited to the White House, and Vice President Pence back at that time, he was holding a session for mayors to talk about what they're going to be doing. So term limits are there for you. Throughout this campaign, I have presented to you the facts and accomplishments of this council and of my staff. This council has been very supportive of my election, and my administration has worked very hand in hand. We are not outliers. We work hand in hand with every one of our legislators. He talks about, he takes the recommendation of the council. Is that what congressmen do? They wait for Biden to make a decision, and no, they draft bills. That's what a councilman should do. Council is the most powerful position in the city of Easton. I'm just an elected administrator. I don't set the rules. They do. As I said, I believe very strongly that change for change's sake is not good. Change for change's sake, just because you think you need to change, When was the last time you changed your family doctor? When you're a school teacher, you become a principal, you have longevity, you get awards for longevity. When you're a council, when you're a member of Congress, you get longevity awards. Why is that the same with the executive? See, I believe in term limits for federal government employees, or federal government elected officials, because they have too much money that they spend and they raise from PACs, and then they spend it. But I can list a lot of projects that I'm very proud of. The one that I'm most proud of, and I say it all the time, is the Simon Silk Mill. We thought it was Simone, but it is Simon. So it's the Simon Silk Mill. Why? Because my mother worked there till the day we opened up our store. She worked there making garment bags for Fredwell Incorporated. But that took a lot of work, and it took a lot of years to put that together. Today it's very successful. We just got a $1 million ISRP grant to clean up the Easton Iron and Metal. We've gotten over $70 million of other people's money, mostly state and federal government, to make our city a better place. We're not wealthy. I've worked very hard to build up relationships. I could walk down the state capitol or into Congress and people know me. Why is that important? Because when Dennis Davin was the HUD secretary and came here, he made